we like to say that Super, his greatest legacy was that he changed my life.
That's amazing.
And
That is
and that
amazing.
I get to help lots of families like us, I think, by helping our client practices do a better job of doing what they
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
So bless him, because he died young and it was a painful first experience going
Mhm.
through that. Lots of awarenesses, lots of learnings, but I will always be grateful to him for what he did for my entire life.
Hello, my name is Debbie Boone, and I want to welcome you to my podcast, The Bend, where we explore how successful people navigated the path and emerged in a better place when life threw them an unexpected twist. It's inspired by one of my favorite sayings: the bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the curve. These conversations will hopefully help you and inspire you to embrace your personal bend and to flourish. I hope you enjoy it, and if you need help with your own personal navigation and you're in veterinary medicine, please feel free to reach out to me at Debbie Boone 2 Manage Vets Consulting. Enjoy the bend and be inspired by our wonderful guest. Welcome. Here we go.
Doing the fun stuff.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this episode of The Bend. Today, I am absolutely thrilled to have Robin Brogdon with me. Robin is the founder and chief executive officer of the award-winning Blueprints Marketing Group. She earned a master's degree in communication and marketing. She began her career in sports marketing. So we're going to talk about how she started and how she ended up managing a monstrous veterinary hospital. I think you said, yeah, 30,000 square feet. That's insane, Robin. That's insane. And then she has done so many other things. She is the president of the Veterinary Specialist Outreach and Awareness Project, recently renamed the Collaborative Care Coalition. She does management consulting division for Blueprints, and she helps particularly specialty practices and industry clients protect their perfect their internal operations and client experience, and reflects that in their marketing materials. So she is a marketing whiz, like official marketing whiz with the degree and everything. I know some of us are pretty good marketers, but we're homegrown, just sort of like some of those homegrown technicians, right, Robin?
You bet. And some of the homegrown are just fabulous.
They are. They really are. They're just talented. They have their ear to the ground, and not to mention the fact that's all they've ever done is play on Facebook and the internet their whole lives. But tell us your origin story. Tell us how you got from there to
Wow.
here.
Well, first of all, Debbie, thank you so much. This is great fun. I feel like this is two friends having a conversation. And I love talking about marketing. I could talk about it for 3 weeks. And I love talking about my dogs. So, combining it all is just like the perfect lunchtime visit. So, I landed in veterinary medicine by accident. Like a lot of people, this was one of my big curves in life. Um, as you said, I started off my career in sports marketing. I went to the University of Michigan and I worked for the university's athletic department. My first professional job after grad school, I worked for a professional basketball team. They were called the Washington Bullets back then in DC. And then when I moved to California, I went to work in the action sports world. I went to work for a surf skate snow company that was primarily focused on surf, which my husband loved because he's a Huntington Beach native and a surfer, and he got lots of freebies and discounts, and that really served him well. And after we got married, we wanted very much to buy a home so that we could get a dog. And so, we were fortunate that my husband had been in the Army. We had a VA loan available to us. So we were able to get into an absolute teardown that 99% of the people would have walked away from. But it fit our price range. And we had a VA loan, which is no money down, no closing costs. It literally cost us $19 to rent the U-Haul and move. And so we bought this little tiny shack so that we could get a dog. And we did. And his name was Super, like super duper. And he was probably, he was free in the penny saver. So he was about 8 months old when we got him. And the very next day we took him for his neuter. So we wondered if he was really going to be traumatized when he got back to our house or not. But he was our first kid. And again, he was about 8 months old, and he was probably a golden lab cross. He had, golden eyes, golden legs, black body. He was super handsome, super dumb, and super cute. But he was our first kid. And, we got more since then. And sadly, when he turned, right around the time he turned 8 years old, he was diagnosed by our family veterinarian with lymphoma. And since Super was my first dog as an adult, I had not experienced that yet. And our family veterinarian referred us to a veterinary oncologist. And I said, oh, what? This was 20 years ago. And we went off to the oncologist. And sadly, he was one of the statistics, because we all know that lymphoma caught early, about 85 to 90% of them go into remission and at least have some extended period of quality of life. And he was one of those sad statistics that within 5 weeks, we had to humanely euthanize him. But the curve here is that the oncologist that was treating him, 5 days after he died, she hired me to be her first ever administrator. And she was already a multi-site oncology practice, already doing about 3 million in revenue. She grew so quickly. She was literally carrying a bucket of chemo around from location to location. She had never really set up her business. And so when I started, invoices and the office were stacked this high, nothing was filed, bank accounts had never been reconciled, there were no employee files. So in essence, I built her business while she provided cancer care. So we like to say that Super, his greatest legacy was that he changed my life.
That's amazing.
And that I get to help lots of families like us, I think, by helping our client practices do a better job of doing what they do.
Yeah.
So bless him, because he died young, and it was a painful first experience going through that. Lots of awarenesses, lots of learnings, but I will always be grateful to him for what he did for my entire life.
Wow. Well, as someone who similarly walked into a practice and they had never had a practice manager, and at that time there was a 2-doctor practice that boarded over 100 animals every weekend.
Wow.
And my practice owner looked at me and said, well, my wife tells me I need a manager. I don't know what you're going to do, but here. And that was my job description. And then you just start digging away. And I'm sure that's exactly what you did, was just to have to start digging away a piece at a time to try to put the systems in place.
Yep.
So
I had to get resourceful. Frankly, I had the administrative skills. I had come from being the director of administrative operations at the Action Sports Company, where I put all the pieces together. I, kind of built the office, onboarded new team members, did a lot of marketing. Was really doing the job of an administrator. I just needed to learn veterinary medicine. I had the hard skills. So it was really a matter of asking good questions, kind of being intuitive, and really being willing to dig in, read, search, and just, get resourceful about trying to figure out what I didn't know that I didn't know.
Right. And of course, starting out in specialty too, it's not like you were just finding out what routine vaccinations included. You were going for oncology and chemo, and oh my goodness, that's
well. The funny thing about that is I'm the daughter of a human specialist, and Linda, who works for me, she's actually the president of Blueprints. She's the daughter and granddaughter and sister of human specialists. So we joke all the time, because occasionally you'll have somebody say, how do you work with all those specialists? They can be a little more challenging. And we just laugh and we say, our dads are specialists. We're not
we just grew up knowing. We grew up figuring it out.
Grew up speaking medicine at the dinner table.
Yes.
So the language and the lexicon of medicine was familiar. We knew how to pronounce things. We had probably a better grasp of medical terminology and basic concepts than just sort of your average person, because we grew up in it.
Right, right. Well, I know, I don't know if you've ever read Dr. Dan Boss's book, Educating Clients A to Z, but it's one of my favorite
Yes.
books. And in the premise of it, she just says our clients are medically ignorant. 80% of them are medically ignorant. And so when you're starting to learn all this stuff, you at least had the background. I feel like I was the same way. I had a degree in animal science and pre-vet. So I had a lot of the anatomy and the
Right.
lingo, and I was able to build on that. But people coming in, like, I mean, I hired a receptionist who came from selling shoes. She was one of the best receptionists I ever had, but
Yep.
there's a huge learning curve when you start out with no animals and you sold shoes for a living, and
Yep.
now you're in veterinary medicine.
But I know
So,
you and I also both came from service
yeah.
industry. And, while people don't always realize it, this is a service business.
Oh my
Yes, it's a
gosh.
medical business, but more than anything, it's a service business
It-
because people
mhm.
can't judge your clinical competency. They can only judge how you made them feel.
Exactly.
That's all
Exactly.
about service.
Yes.
And when I launched Blueprints, I knew specialists needed assistance developing authentic relationships with primary care practitioners so that they were developing these relationships that fostered collaboration as opposed to transactions.
Mhm.
Because I wasn't sure they knew they needed it. I did. So that was one of my leaps of faith.
Yeah.
But it became apparent as there started to be some competition that that's what was going to drive um, growth, because your average primary care veterinarian doesn't necessarily know whether the surgeon or the internist or the oncologist is exceptionally skilled clinically, but they do know how that specialist made their referred client feel. Did they communicate clearly? Did they demonstrate value? Did the referral reflect well on them? So it's really, again, it's all about service.
Mhm.
Everybody just delivers it a little bit differently.
Right, right. Well, and all the specialists and even the emergency hospitals, when I'm talking to the practice owners, I said, look, you have two sets of clients. Your first set of client obviously is the client who's walking in the door with the sick pet, but the other set of clients is your referrings. And you have to build relationships with them. And I remember Cindy Trice telling the story about being in vet school, and the specialist there received a phone call from a GP. And when she hung up the phone, she just looked around in kind of disdain and said, we don't raise them that stupid here. And Cindy said, the thing I thought about was, I'm going to go out after I graduate, I'm going to be in practice, and I'm going to call, and somebody's going to say that about me. And I think that is one of the things that really is off-putting, because the general practitioner wants to have a partnership with a specialist, not someone who looks at them as less than
Yep.
or incompetent, um it just because they're not a specialist, but they still are smart people. They still can lay the groundwork, they still do good medicine,
Hey, just getting
and
into
it
vet
is a
school,
partnership.
there's a level of competency there that the majority of the population doesn't have. Just getting
Exactly.
into vet school. It's interesting you say the two clients. We always tell our clients, our specialty practice clients, that they're actually three clients. The
Mm,
client who walks through the door, the potential referring veterinarian, but your most important client and your first client is your staff.
absolutely.
And and I
Yeah.
know you preach this like we do. It's
Yes.
really all about gaining buy-in, becoming a partner with your team, having it be this seamless, cohesive group, because they're the ones delivering on your brand promise or not.
Exactly.
So
Yep.
if they don't look internally first, everything we do externally
Yeah.
will fall flat, which is why at this stage of Blueprints in my career, I like to focus on the internal for our clients.
Mhm.
Many marketing firms will simply collect your money and put together a plan. You call them for a website or social media or whatever it is. We start asking lots of questions about the inside. And I know they often wonder why. Well, I can't tell you how many times we've told a client, you're not ready for that.
Mhm.
Let's go ahead and shore up your leadership, shore up your process, shore up your operations before you invest in this, because you're going to have one chance to push forth some new messaging, whether it's new branding, whatever it might be, let's get the foundation really solid before we decorate.
Yeah. I mean, you can drive people in the door, and if they get a bad experience because the
Yep.
staff's not on board,
Yep.
then you have wasted your money. There is no
Exactly.
return on investment. And
Yep.
my theory has always been get the people right and the business will show up. If you get the
Absolutely.
people right. Yeah. So Robin, obviously going into especially hospital, um, was that the scariest event of your life when you were
Ooh,
revamping that?
was it the scariest event? No, I think, sometimes when you're, I was going to say young, dumb, and stupid, but I wasn't all that young because it was a second career for me. I think because I didn't know what I didn't know. And I had had enough success early on in my career in other avenues. I've reinvented myself a few times. So that's kind of part of what I want to make people understand is you can keep reinventing. And there's a lot of really good to that. I worked really hard, but I don't think I was that scared. And I think it's because my boss, the oncologist, like you said, had no idea what I was doing or why or what. So what I learned, one of the, because I know as you gave me some questions to ponder for our conversations, one of the biggest challenges was the boss. And I say that with respect because they don't know what an administrator does. And so I'd be there often 12-hour days, 4 and 5 days a week. And I know she's looking at me like, well, you have a good home life. You're not here to escape your home life. What are you doing so much? And so I started on a weekly basis, kind of sharing the highlights, just in a quick email of all the things I was doing. And they were eye-opening to her. I mean, we came to figure out when we were preparing to move that there was actually no business license. I mean, there was so much that she didn't do at the beginning because she didn't know. It was ignorance as opposed to anything malicious. Everything from incorporating the business. I mean, she was still a sole proprietorship and legally exposed. And so, I mean, all with the insurance and all the things that to most doctors that eventually she at least grasped the majority of it. But I think on a day-to-day basis, it was still, their brains don't think like ours and our brains don't think like theirs. So I just have the utmost respect for their clinical skills and ability. I mean, my brain doesn't operate science. It operates this side. So, eventually there was a healthy respect for what we each brought to the table and understood that both sides were necessary. And I'm proud to say that business went on and became, a $20 million business. I mean, long after I was gone and sold and has multiple locations. And, I feel really proud of the foundation I helped give it to allow it the opportunity to flourish like that.
You made a really excellent point, and I want to go back and talk about it a little bit because one of the challenges I think that all managers have is nobody knows what we're doing. There's so much that's kind of subtle. There's so many forms and documents and legal things and reports and just back end stuff that you're doing that a lot of times the team has this idea that you're hiding back in the office playing video games, or your practice owner doesn't know that. So when you said, I just started to do this email and let her know what I was doing and what was involved in this, because it immediately gave her a completely different perspective and respect for the job. But I think that's also important for managers to do for their teams.
Absolutely.
And you've got to let your people know you're just not hiding in the office, and you shouldn't be hiding in the office. You should be walking around and seeing what they're doing and making connections with them and knowing your team. But I was just on a Facebook group yesterday where a new manager was going, well, my team is talking about me behind my back and they're saying I'm being snarky and this and this and this, and I don't know what to do. And I went, look, you got to let them know what you're doing. And I used to go up and tell every time I worked till 10 o'clock at night, I made sure somebody knew it, because then not my boss, but it was the team that knew. And then I would say, I've got this really big project going on. What do you think we should do about this? And so I got them involved in it too. But it's about communication and transparency. And obviously marketing It's communicating. It's telling
Yeah.
people your story. Um,
I think
so
everything that we do is marketing.
yeah.
And I sometimes joke it when I'm lecturing that, anytime your name and logo is, visible, you're marketing. I said,
Mhm.
so if your technicians at happy hour at 6:30 at night getting a little tipsy, wearing your fleece, you're marketing.
Yeah.
I said, just be aware of that. So set some parameters around where you want them to show up with your logo and where you don't want them to show up with
Yes.
your logo.
Yes. And hopefully
And
jail is not one of the places, right?
yeah, I mean, I don't mean to pick on a technician. I mean, we
Right.
all know they're the backbone of our
Yes.
practices,
Yes.
but it's everything we do is marketing.
Mhm.
I used to, recruitment has always been a challenge in veterinary medicine. Today, it's just on steroids. But I used to be, when I was the administrator for the oncology practice, we were always looking for really good front desk team members. And I frequently would be in the grocery store checkout line and I would see somebody in front of me in scrubs. And, I knew for the most part they worked for one of the human medical facilities around. We're in a big medical area, but I would always use it as an opportunity to say, you don't happen to work at a veterinary clinic, do you? And, if they said yes, where, whatever. If they said no, I used it as an opportunity to not only recruit, but say, I am the manager of a veterinary oncology practice. Did you know there are specialists for pets? Because 20 years ago, nobody knew there were specialists.
Exactly.
Now, some know they're specialists. We're still working on that. But it
It's
was an opportunity for me to share with someone in the medical profession that there were specialists because they were going to go back to the hospital or office and
Mhm.
say, wow, you'll never believe it,
Oh yeah.
and I would hand them my card and say, if you know anybody who loves animals, who wants to work in the medical field or works in the medical field, I'd be happy to talk to them. And it was part of what you did,
That's
like
it.
you and I, we talk to people.
Yeah, we do. We talk to people. You're exactly right. Now, so tell me, what has been your toughest life challenge, Robin?
Ooh, toughest life challenge. Well, like I said, I've reinvented myself a few times. And I think one of the reinventions in my 20s probably shocked people quite a bit, but it was really a necessity. And when I tell you this story, you're either going to think, wow, she's brave, or wow, she's a little wacky, or maybe a little bit of both. But after grad school, like I said, I went to work in DC. I went to work for the basketball team. And from there, I was actually recruited by a recruitment company to work for them. And I spent 3-4 years there and very quickly moved up the ranks and bought a little townhouse at 25 years old, was driving the cute little BMW, had expensive suits from Nordstrom. And, I woke up one day and I went, if this is all life has in store, I'm in trouble. I was bored to tears. And I mean, people were trying to fix me up on blind dates. I didn't want to go on those. I had sort of reached sort of a young age pinnacle and went, man, something's got to change. I sold everything I owned, including my home, and I went and lived barefoot in a bathing suit on a beach, working for the Club Med Resorts for the next 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Now, I thought my mother was going to have a heart attack. I thought my father was going to disown me. And I'm saying all this legit. They were freaked. I mean, I was in my I think I was in my late 20s. Most of my friends were getting married. Some were starting to have babies. And I was selling everything I owned to run away on a beach. So my parents were mortified. I had some friends that were like, wow, I can't believe you're doing this. And then I had other friends go, what are you doing?
Yeah.
One of the best decisions of my life. I always say I can't sit in, very long. I'm someone who, once it gets bad, I don't wallow. I can't, some people just take a long time to process and, live in the angst. I can only do that for so long and something's got to change. And, I was really disillusioned because I was doing all the things I was supposed to do. I got a college degree, a graduate degree. I got a good job. I built a house. I did. Oh my God. It was just so not the right time for me to be living that life.
Mhm.
I needed to go experience the world and I didn't have the money to go travel the world. So working for the Club Med resorts, I lived on 4 different islands or exotic places. I worked with people from over 100 different countries. And, 2 years in, I was ready to take a deep breath, return to the States. And of course, I needed to then find a happy medium between sort of conservative Washington, D.C., and a business suit every day and barefoot on a beach. So I landed in Southern California. It was kind of that happy medium. And that was a big challenge because I had to fight with myself and I had to fight with all the perceptions of what I should be doing. And it was probably the best decision I ever made.
Yeah. Of course, this show is all about those bends that either you take by choice, like this one, or life
Yep.
throws you no
Like
matter
the
what.
dog with
So you
cancer.
just deal through it, right?
Right.
But looking back on all those things, sort of a recurring theme has been it was a good thing to happen. It was a good thing to
Absolutely.
live through, and it gave me some skills. And even looking back, I mean, I had breast cancer when I was 46, and looking back on that, you think, well, that was just really, who wants to go through that?
Yeah.
But it did give me a really good perspective on how important what I call the hospitality of a hospital is. And in fact,
Oh,
I'm
I
really
love that
pondering writing a
statement.
book about that, because it was tough to go through, and there was frightening times of it, but gave me an experience that was invaluable. And it also let me know that people were pretty wonderful. And I was working in the animal hospital at the time. I'd been there a really long time, and I didn't really tell anybody I was sick. In fact, most people never even knew. They knew I wasn't there as much as I had been, but they didn't really know. And I got like 35, 40 cards from clients over the time that the word leaked out. And I thought that's, really amazing. I didn't even know that these people really cared that much
Yeah.
to take the time and send a card out.
It was before email.
Exactly right. Yeah, they
Yeah.
couldn't email me. Yeah, couldn't. We had just started that, maybe just. So let's talk about overcoming fear, because I think that you said I couldn't take it anymore. I had to get out. But most people would stay because of fear. How do you think
Yeah.
you overcame the fear?
Yeah. So that's a great question. And I think, each time I've kind of been faced with one of those really crappy situations and felt like I needed to get out of it, I think one of the reasons most people are so fearful is they're afraid that their next move is going to be the wrong move
Mhm.
and they're going to regret. And I think of things a little bit differently. I think the next right move is the next right move to get you to the next right move.
Mhm.
So while the ultimate step may not be where you stay, it was the right step to get you to the next step.
Mhm.
And I think without all the steps in the journey, you don't end up where the universe kind of, makes room for you.
Yeah.
So I think you've got to be open to the doors that you can walk through when they present themselves. And, and understanding that if this job doesn't work out, there's another one.
Mhm.
Or there's a place that I belong, but if I hadn't taken this step, I wouldn't be one step closer to the next.
Mhm.
So I don't look at it as a make or break. This has to be the best, the next. It's just a step in the process.
Right.
And, maybe that's come with age. Maybe that's come with, I don't know, but I just, I guess I have enough confidence in myself to know that there'll be something else.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
I'm not going to starve. I mean, I definitely have that back of the brain, not enough syndrome. I always feel like, one day I'm going to be a bag lady, but let's face it, that has never been, I work way too hard for that. I've waited tables even as a second job all the way through until, like 20 years ago. It's just, I'm afraid to not work that hard. Maybe that's part of the baby boomer generation.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just what we do. We
It
work.
is what we do, and we're slightly insane that way. But
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, my mother used to say, of course, I grew up in the restaurant business, and my mother used to say, learn how to wait on tables and you'll never go hungry because you'll always
Totally.
work in a restaurant and you'll always have something to eat.
Yeah.
You know, you're right. And so that
And
was
you
my
either,
college job. And it was great
growing
because,
up,
yeah,
you either did retail or restaurant. You and
that's
I were
it.
restaurant girls.
That's it, restaurant. But again, those skills were there for a reason. And so the hospitality, the customer service, I really think working for tips, if you're good at it, is a good groundwork for working as a CSR in a veterinary hospital.
Absolutely.
And I used to love seeing veterinarians who had that kind of experience when they were growing up. Yes, somebody gets how it is to forward face the public, because I think everybody on earth should work with the public at least once in their lives.
Yeah.
And they would go out into the world and they would not be assholes. They really would not, because they've been on the receiving end.
And to have to multitask extraordinaire. Yes. I mean, knowing Mrs. Jones is coming in, is going to need help getting inside. This one's picking up that. I mean, this one's answering the phone. This one's buzzing you from the back, and be able to do it all with a smile, making people feel like they're important. Yeah. That's what waiting tables is. Exactly.
Well, you know, it's funny. Of course, I live in South Carolina. I live at Myrtle Beach, and everybody here is looking for help.
We both live in resort town.
We do. We live in somebody else's vacation. That's the way we look at it. But there's help wanted signs everywhere. And I realized that so many of the wait staff have been improperly or poorly trained because they're walking themselves to death. And it's like you said, you learn to think ahead. I'll go pick up these dirty dishes. I'll go deliver this check. I'll go bring these people water. I'll go take these people's order, and I will walk one loop instead of 4 back and forths to whatever it is. So you learn to be efficient in your movements when you are a good waitress.
Do you agree? Sometimes I don't know that you can always teach that. I think sometimes that just sort of comes from who you are. I mean, like you, I also managed restaurants in my early life, and you would always have a few servers who just got it. And then you would have a few who they were forever behind. And it's sort of your CSR who can't keep up, or your technician who just the time management skill. Sure, there are things that you can help them with operationally, but I think your brain has to process things in a way that can't always be taught.
Yeah. I think you're right. Some people are instinctively good at it. Others, you can teach them when you have them like observe other people and say, think through things, think before you move. That was what I used to teach people, think before you move. And it's the same thing in veterinary medicine, think before you move, because then if you have a plan, you're going to think efficiently about all the stuff that you have to get done, rather than just willy-nilly, the sky is falling, let me try to do all this stuff at the same time. It's not gonna work. So Robin, you like me, you've done several things in your life. Tell me what you've considered to be your biggest career mistake.
Ooh, I was thinking about that too. I think, and again, this could be just a function of maturity and age, but I think I was far too emotional in my early years, and didn't know how to channel passion and emotion appropriately. I mean, I probably cried too much. I was pretty badly beat up and abused, I don't mean literally, by a boss in my early years. And I remember trying to take some of that to the CEO of the company. And I think I lost probably a ton of credibility because I could barely get it out, choking over the words while crying. And, I'm not what I consider a big crier, but I was so invested and working so hard, and yet feeling so beat up and abused by this boss that I didn't know how to present it in a way that was more professional. And, I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong inherently with some tears. I just was overboard. So I think I hurt myself early on. Fortunately, I've learned, and at this ripe old age, I find myself shedding tears far less often at work.
Yeah. maybe anger and frustration more so than sadness.
Yeah,
Sometimes
I
like,
mean,
oh, yeah.
occasionally you have a client who's really not kind, which hasn't happened in a long
Hmm.
time, fortunately. And part of that's because I've at least reached a level of success where I don't have to take on some of those clients
Yes.
anymore or choose to move on from some of those. But I also think, hopefully everybody's maturing and is a little kinder today.
Hmm.
We've all been through a rough year and a half.
Mm.
Wherever you started the pandemic, we all then had the same thing added to wherever we started.
Hmm.
And so while certainly our profession has experienced an extraordinary amount of rudeness and difficulty. There are also those on the flip side that are enormously grateful because they understand the challenges that, our essential workers, our teams have gone through and continue to go through. I know when I go to the vet, I more than make up for it as best I can because I know I'm always bringing cookies or sending a thank you note or posting a positive review. Or if I know it, I actually just visited an internist recently who's a client for one of my golden retrievers. And I saw a couple things that I thought they could do better of, where I got to pull her aside and talk to her about it and offer her some suggestions and support because I want the experience for all of her clients to be what I know it can and should be. And so, yeah, it's been a tough one for a while, but I'd like to think they're the flip side that are trying to help overcompensate for some of those that haven't been so kind.
Yeah, and I think part of that is let's push information out. And of course, marketing, this is a great deal what you do and what I try to teach people to
Absolutely.
do.
We look at marketing as education.
Yes. So when we teach our clients what we're going through, they have no idea. We're assuming they understand we're busy and that 12 million animals got adopted, but they don't know that. They're living in their world and their stress. And when we start to share what's going on and give them a heads up, not when they call to make an appointment on the phone, but weeks in advance of that, where we're constantly sending out emails and say, here's what's going on. Just, don't think we're going to, get you in the day like we used to.
Yep.
This is why everybody's stressed. This is why we have you outside. This is, just this is why. And then people were like, oh my gosh, we did this for one of my clients, just sent a letter out to all the clients. And she said it was the most incredible response of support. She said it was like Christmas when we get stuff for Christmas. And
Wow.
that's what we have to do is you have to push information out because our clients
Yeah.
do love us if we have done it right. And I think most of us do the majority of it right. Obviously,
Yep.
I wouldn't be in business if we were doing everything right because I'm a consultant, but still. So, Robin, let's talk about networking because you and I both are Vet Partners Association members and we met there. But how do you feel like networking has been important to your success of your career and your business at Blueprints?
It's been everything. It's been everything. It has opened every door imaginable. I mean, the world is so small, and you meet one who knows another. I mean, we all know the adage 6 degrees of separation. Veterinary medicine, it's 2 degrees of separation. And for people like you and I who are not veterinarians,
Mhm.
we're not clinical professionals. The fact that I get to play in their sandbox is still an honor to me today, but it's been everything. And, my job at Blueprints is to be the face of the company. And, I'm the one traveling, I'm the one out there, I'm the one meeting and spending time with people like you. And it allows me to service my clients better because I know about resources like you and like others that I'm able to bring in and recommend to our clients. But it has been, so it's opened lots of doors, but it has been the greatest joy for me in getting to know some of my most favorite people. And I'll tell you a funny story. So 2 years ago, my husband Tim and I went to Africa on a safari trip of a lifetime, something I had dreamt about since I was a little kid. And I mean, this is just going to blow your mind. When team heard this, they were like, of course, because you know everybody, which I do not. I just know a lot, but that's my job. So right before I left for Africa, I was going to be up at UC Davis teaching in their mini MBA program. It was the first year, and Dr. Jim Clark was the one that invited me, and he had put together this mini MBA program for Davis. He's an instructor there for all the business curriculum in the vet school. And he was actually one of my first clients at Blueprint. So he's become a good friend. And he said, you're not staying in a hotel. You're going to stay with me and my fiance. We're going to cook you dinner. We're going to catch up. So I mentioned to him while I was there that next week we're going to Africa. He said, are you kidding? Jennifer and I leave for Africa tomorrow. I'm like, really? So I looked at his itinerary. He said, yeah, we're going to Namibia first. My daughter's doing an internship with some cheetah rescue group. And then we're going here and here. So I looked at his itinerary. I said, we might overlap in Victoria Falls for 12 hours. I said, but we'll never see each other, but let's look for each other anyway. Because I thought we were going to Zambia and then Botswana. That was what was on my radar. But I booked the trip and just left it to fate that it was going to be awesome. So we go to Zambia. We go to Victoria Falls. I look around and I don't see Jim. Obviously, he doesn't see me. The next day we go to Zimbabwe, and we're in a 45,000 acre national park. And we are cruising in our little open air truck. And there's another truck kind of pulling toward us. And the guides are also good about stopping and talking to each other and helping each other track different animals. Well, I see this truck pulling towards us. And I looked at my husband. I said, oh my God, that looks like my friend Jim. He's like, you've got to be kidding me. They pull up. I jump out of the car. I'm like, oh my God, that's my friend Jim. Okay, so what was so crazy about this is we are halfway around the world in a 45,000 acre national park in a country I didn't even know I was going to, on the same road at the same time. Mind blowing. So we took pictures. We all got out of the truck. We didn't get eaten by any lions, because we're in the middle of, we all hug, we meet, we take pictures. And so I'm not even sure how we got on this, but it's one of my most favorite stories.
It's the networking.
Networking.
It is the networking. Yeah.
So if I hadn't sat at a table with Jim at a VISIP conference years ago, which stood for Veterinary Specialists in Private Practice, the organization doesn't exist anymore, but I sat at a table with Jim, I don't know, 15, 16, 17 years ago. He became a client. We stayed friends. He asked me to speak at Davis. We find out we're going to Africa. We meet up in Zimbabwe.
Amazing.
There you go. So that's one of the most amazing networking stories I have.
That really is. That really is.
But it's been everything. I mean, your audience should know that I was able to bring you into one of our clients, and you now serve on an advisory council for one of my clients, and have been an incredible addition. And I wouldn't have known you had it not been for Vet Partners, probably, and been able to expand the types of council members that sit on this, council, because you were the first non-veterinarian I brought into this mix. And I think because of it, I've created much greater value to the client because of your perspective. So, I mean, that's a direct correlation, but most importantly, I've just met the most amazing people that, I now call friends, colleagues, and can really trust, not only with helping me with my business when I have, some owner CEO questions, but also with my clients.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I've always been a people person. I think it was inherited. My father was like that. My brother was unbelievable. And my mom too. I mean, my mom's 87 and she's still out, getting to know people, and she knows everybody in her little water aerobics class at the Y and has lunch with them, her little lady friends and her golf lady friends. But there's so many introverts in veterinary medicine. I can remember Eric Garcia was on this podcast, and he said, I remember coming to the first Vet Partners meeting, and I just wanted to go back and hide in the room after the meeting. The education was done. I wanted to go hide in the room, and I think Louise Dunn talked him into coming into the group and having conversation. He said, now that's my favorite part of it, is to come and talk to people and see the people that I haven't met. So I think even for those who are not like Robin and I, who are naturally gregarious.
But I will caveat there, I'm an extroverted introvert.
Me too.
I don't like a big party. I dread these events. When I get there, I'm fine, and I can work a room like the best of them, but it's not what I like plan for, hope for, look forward to. I just know I'm going to be good when I get there, but I usually don't want to go before, after I sign up. And at the end of the day, I mean, both Tim and I have jobs where we are on all day long. So it's kind of like at the end of the day, I want to close the blinds, turn off the phone, don't bug me. But yet I'm glad somebody wants to call me.
Right.
It's kind of it's, like a this.
I agree with that. And it's, I think it's a learned skill, obviously, going out and being able to not so much talk to people, but listen to people. And people are worried that they're, I don't know how to go up and talk to strangers. I said, ask them questions about themselves and sit back and listen. And people are fascinating. So I'm one of those people who actually will talk to people on airplanes. And sometimes that aggravates my husband when he's traveling with me, but I do find people fascinating. And hopefully that the conversations that we have are not interesting. I don't tell people what I do for a living usually, because it ends up with 2 hours of dog pictures, and cat pictures. And you're like, oh my God, why did I tell them? I laughed and told somebody, I said, if there's somebody I don't want to talk to on a plane, I just tell them I'm an agent for the IRS. And
that's a good one. Yeah, I really have met some very interesting people traveling.
Yes.
Whether it's the Uber driver, the person next to you on the plane, wherever it might be, at the hotel, restaurant, bar, eating dinner. I mean, it's, that's been an interesting part of it too, without a doubt. Yeah. And again, just being open and aware. Look, I can put my head down like the best of them if I don't want to talk, or if I kind of don't like somebody's vibes. But, one thing that's helped me too is I have an incredibly good memory for names, dates, connections. The team, like I said, my team always says, everybody. And I don't. It's just, I have this skill of memory when it comes to, I'll remember your name, and I'll remember where you work, and I'll remember where I met you. So when I see you again, even if you don't, I'll be able to say, it's nice to see you. We connected for the first time at Vet Partners. And then that makes the person feel good that you remembered them, that they had enough of an impression on you to be remembered.
Right. And it's funny. I can remember, speaking of memory, and mine is not as good as yours, because I will meet so many people, and then I do try to play back the names in my head, because that's it. The first time you meet somebody, chances are really good you're not paying attention to their name, but I really try to capture it and play it back in my head so that I can memorize it. But I was teaching one of my Patterson classes, like very, very beginning of when I was doing this, is like 10 years ago. And the first class was huge. And this woman came up to me after class or in a break, and she said, I have a question for you. My husband and I just bought this practice. The practice is 100 years old. So it's up in the Boston area. And we have, the receptionist that's the entrenched, I'm never going to change, toxic employee. She said, what do I need to do? And I said, well, you need to let her go. And she said, I knew you were going to say that to me. I didn't want to hear that. But I said, you need to let her go, because once you do, then since you're the new owner, your husband's the new owner, it actually kind of establishes the fact that you're going to not tolerate this bad behavior. So 2 years later, I was back and I was in Connecticut teaching a class, and she came up to me and she said, I'm sure you don't remember me. And I went, didn't I tell you to fire somebody? She said, yes. She said, I loved your class so much. I brought 3 of my employees, and I didn't fire the woman, but we stuck her in the back where she can't talk to anybody. Well, you're
Wow.
working your way out the back door. But it is funny if you start to pay attention to what you can remember about people and just the places. And I'll say to people, you know what, I cannot remember your name, but I remember exactly where I met you, and you do this for a living, and this is your dog's name or whatever it is.
Right.
And so people, they will forgive the name, but if you can place them somewhere, I think that's an important thing. And yeah, and networking is huge. And I really appreciated you reaching out and asking me to become part of this advisory board. And it has been fun for me. I was so intimidated by the people on it because they're so brilliant. I'm like, and
There's some
me,
big
really?
names.
I'm kind
I'm
of nervous about this.
intimidated.
Yeah. Like, whoa. So but it worked out. We all bring a different perspective to the table.
Exactly.
And I think knowing I am the customer, as opposed to a lot of times the veterinarians that are, they're thinking about medical stuff, but I am the practice manager who's looking for the bargain. And that's what we're trained to do. We got to look for the best deal and the safest drug, and that's what
But you're also looking for the best value, which is what you've been able to
exactly
help
right.
them understand.
Yes,
Exactly.
exactly. And that's what, is it safe and is it reasonably priced? Because if it's super cheap and it's not safe, I don't want it. So yeah,
Yep.
that's exactly it.
Yep.
So Robin, obviously you have moved through multiple different jobs and careers, and just taking risk, I guess, taking a chance, and said, I'm just not going to sit here and be miserable. I'm going to take a chance. So what advice would you give people who are miserable in their job and they're sitting there afraid to move out of it? What would you say to them to get them to say, go for it?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I mean, as you know, I worked in the recruitment business a long time ago. And, the old adage, you shouldn't go to a new job without, or you shouldn't leave a job without a new job already lined up. For the most part is true, unless you have the resources set aside to allow you that comfort in doing so. Some people process things in a way where, I needed to close a chapter before I was open to the next one. I'm sort of the opposite of that. I'm sort of the opposite of that advice, but I prepare for that. So, for instance, when my dog got cancer, the economy was shrinking and we were saving, thinking I might get laid off. So I was preparing for that. So when I actually gave notice at my action sports job, I think it was November 1st that year. And I didn't know what I was going to do next, but I had been preparing. I knew my time there was done. And 2 weeks later, my dog was diagnosed with cancer. It was sort of like the universe knew I needed to be there for him. And so I had the time to be there for him. So I had taken the risk of closing that door. And during his treatment and convalescing, a door opened. So I would say for other people, prepare as best you can so that you have the power to make the choice when you need to. For most people, it's going to be finding a new place to go to before you close the door on your current. But if you're someone like me I was so invested, I couldn't even think about where to go next and what to do until I closed that chapter and gave my brain a chance to decompress and then become open to looking at what possibilities there were. I mean, I had no idea there were careers in veterinary medicine other than being a veterinarian or what I knew to be a veterinary nurse. Mm-hmm. I just had no idea. It's just not something I thought about, looked at, until I was forced to be in that situation. Mm-hmm. So I think, and again, thinking about it in the way of the next place doesn't need to be the be all and end all. It just needs to be the next right step to get you to the next right step. And it just needs to be somewhere that you think you can learn and grow. Don't go somewhere that's just all too familiar, because, as much as we like to think we want to go where we're going to be comfortable, we're going to be bored. Right. And we all need to know that we're contributing, that we're adding value. That's what makes us satisfied with what we do. So go somewhere you're going to stretch yourself, and don't be afraid to stretch yourself a lot. Just be very upfront with that future employer that I may not know about A, B, and C, but what I can do is D, E, and F, and I'm going to make sure to bring you the value that you're seeking because this combination of skills.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I just don't want people to think of that next right step as the one that has to be it. What's it? It's a place and time. That's it.
It just has to be okay for now. It's just like when people say
Exactly.
no to you about things.
And honestly, right now, with the job market as open as it is, you can reinvent yourself 10 times over right now because
The world is your
everybody's
oyster.
hiring at every level.
You're exactly right.
I think now more than ever, at least in my lifetime, is the perfect time to move on from something that just doesn't feel right or feel fulfilling, any longer.
They're offering $200 signing bonuses down here to take a waitress job.
Yep.
Like, I've never
Yep.
seen a bonus for a waitress
Yep.
job before. So there's so much opportunity for people to just say, I just want to do something completely different. There's anything you're interested in, anything that you think would have been fun or something. Why not try it? It's
Absolutely.
life is short and we spend a great deal of time at work. And so I believe in doing what you love. I've always loved what I've done, but it's not been a typical career path, right? A typical manager's career path, because I took chances. I started my own business in the middle of a recession, and it works out if you grind it hard and pay attention to it, and it will absolutely work out for you. But you got to be willing to do the work. That's just it. Nobody's going to hand it to you. You've got to be willing to do the work, and then you can relax a little bit and sit back and enjoy the fruits of your labor.
I mean, look, when I started Blueprints, like I said, I knew there was a need, but I didn't know if specialty practices knew there was a need. And early on, they were my main focus. I started with one client and I said, let's see where it goes. I had been saving, preparing for a change. I had given 9 weeks notice when I left my last job. Again, I needed to kind of close my brain and leave room to kind of blossom somewhere new. And, fortunately, the networking and the work we did, it allowed it to take off. I'm sure there was some luck involved, but it was also a matter of, being aware of doors that were ready to be opened.
So let's talk about a fun fact about you. Do you have a secret talent, a favorite song?
Well, I think the fun fact that most people really go wow to is the fact that I sold everything I owned back when and ran away and lived working for Club Med. But one of the most fun things I did there was I was in the circus act. And not only did I fly trapeze, but my big talent was I was in the bicycle act, where one person rides a bicycle in a circle, and each time they pass by, someone climbs on. And then another climbs on, and then another climbs on. And I was like upside down on headstands on top of, so yeah, I mean, terrible fear, and did it anyway. So that was really fun. But, we were all dressed in costume and, it was a way to just play. So that was something super fun. Because I don't think I have any special talents other than running into people I know in Africa, and having a good memory for that kind of stuff.
Oh, I would love to have a picture of you on all those with the bicycle.
I have some. Look on my Facebook page.
I'm going to have to go look at that. That's incredible. I just look at all those things and go, first of all, how do you practice that? Because I think there has to be a lot of crashing in the practice.
We practiced, and there was some crashing. There definitely was.
But that's okay. You know what? Every failure, we learn something. And so obviously, if you are trying to figure out how to be the top of a pyramid on a moving target and a bicycle running around a circle, that eventually it works. You learn every time you crash, you learn something new.
So, and the funny thing is, I always say it's a good thing the internet and cell phones didn't exist back then, but it's wonderful that it all exists now, because all those people that I met and enjoyed as friends for the 6-month, stint we were in each country, I've now reconnected with. And I have an address book that spans the globe, where I didn't think I would see or be in touch with these people ever again.
Mhm.
And it has reopened that world in a way that, I mean, those were two of the best years of my life. And it's such an incredible experience culturally, physically. I mean, I was exhausted because it was a lot of fun, if you get what I mean. And I don't remember all of it, but what I do remember has allowed me to reconnect with some really special people, really special places. And consequently, I landed living at the beach because, you know, I live in Huntington Beach, California, and it's not unlike the 2 years I spent working for the Club Med Resorts.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I moved to the beach 3 years ago, and I said, if you're going to be quarantined anywhere, this is not a bad place to be stuck. And so we
Exactly.
were definitely stuck. And the only negative, real negative about it was it rained a lot this winter, so we're kind of stuck in the rain. But tell us a little bit about Blueprints, and if people want to get in touch with you, and
Sure.
how to reach out.
You bet. Well, Blueprints is essentially a full service, what people would refer to in the old days as an ad agency. Think Mad Men. Although, we're not having martinis at lunch. We're, over here in Southern California, we're having avocado and ginger tea, So you can tell I'm a Marylander that transplanted to California. So when I say traditional agency, we do everything from naming and branding businesses to developing all the strategies, tools, and tactics to help them grow. We are very goal focused. So we like to dive deep and have fewer clients and do more for them than have, big hundreds and hundreds of clients. So for our specialty and emergency practices or our industry clients, we're about 50-50 today. We do everything from name or rename and rebrand them, strategize as to the different marketing channels and marketing vehicles they should be pursuing to grow their business, whether they're reaching out to veterinarians or consumers. Obviously, the industry companies are reaching out to veterinarians and their teams. Specialists are reaching out to primary care veterinarians and consumers. So we do both business to business, B2B, and B2C, business to consumer, and then develop and implement all the tools and tactics, everything from your printed materials, your logos, to websites, social media, search engine optimization, trade show booths. And we do a fair amount of consulting, which is where Debbie and I get to work together, whether it's helping one of those businesses launch a new CE division, which we recently did for Zoetis, where we named and branded that whole division with a subset for primary care and a subset for specialty, to helping a compounding pharmacy with their strategy and how to differentiate themselves in a very crowded market that, is not always as clean or ethical as we like. Compounding can sometimes be a little bit of what we refer to as a dirty business, but helping our client, better communicate the why and the how. Most businesses are very good at telling the what they do. They're not very good at the how and the why. And the how and the why is why people buy.
Exactly.
That just
exactly.
rhymes.
Simon says golden circles, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I have an amazing team that I feel to me, my proudest career moment is the team I've built, because most of them have been with me 10 years or more. That could be FedEx that I might have to go sign for in a second. But we've got a full digital department that, again, covers everything that lives online. We've got a traditional department, and then I oversee the consulting department. So we work with businesses all across the country, and Blueprints VMG for Blueprints Veterinary Marketing Group is our website. Okay. You can also find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Yes. And we like to think we are incredibly responsive. I mean, that's one of the pieces of feedback we get back that makes us feel good, because we really care authentically we don't want to be a vendor. We truly want to be a partner to that business's growth. So we act like partners, and we hope to be embraced like a partner. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate
it.
The stories are great, and I have every time I see you from now, I'm going to think of you on the top of that pyramid of that bicycle. So that's your multitasking. I can juggle anything. I really can do this. I was in a circus act.
So when I see you in August at the Vet Partners Conference, I'll pull out a few photos to show you.
I want to see them. I absolutely want to see them. We're going to put all your contact information in the show notes at the end, so
Awesome.
people can reach out and talk to you, or if they're interested in getting their company branded, rebranded marketing. Robin's does a great job. Worked with her for this is our second year, I guess, with the Stokes team,
With the council,
and
yeah.
really impressed with the things that she comes up with in her creativity. So thank you again for your time today, and I look forward to seeing you in August and putting this podcast out to the world so people can be impressed with your experience and your bravery, and take some lessons about not being afraid and just going for it.
Well, it was my pleasure. This was lots of fun. I knew we would have plenty of things to talk about, and we would probably have to cut each other off at some point in time. So Deb, thanks so much. I look forward to seeing you in August, and I look forward to sharing the vodcast with our audience.
All right. Well, we will see you when we see you. Thank you,
Awesome.
everyone, for listening.
Thanks, everybody.